Before we begin, a clear note. This episode is based on public court records and source reporting. Any court voice or source reading voice is synthetic. It is not a real interview, not archival audio, and not a cloned voice. On a Thursday morning in August, a 911 dispatcher in Ashtabula County, Ohio, received a call with no voice on the line. The dispatcher called back. A woman answered. She said she needed an ambulance at her home. Then she gave the reason in 4 words. "It's my husband." His name was Raymond Kotomski. When emergency responders reached the house, the court record says Raymond was unresponsive. One EMT described him as gasping for breath, with foam around his mouth. His wife, Teresa Kotomski, told responders that Raymond had contacted her and said he drank something sweet. At the hospital, doctors tested for a toxic ingestion. The result came back positive for ethylene glycol. Antifreeze. This is not a story built around a hidden body, a missing person, or a confession caught on tape. It is a smaller, quieter case. A medical case. A timing case. A case about what a person said happened, what a body showed, and what a judge was allowed to infer from a narrow window of time. The court case is State v. Kotomski. The victim is Raymond, and the question at the center is simple but hard to answer. How did antifreeze get into him? The public appellate record begins after the emergency. Teresa Kotomski was charged in Ashtabula County with murder and with contaminating a substance for human consumption. The case went to a bench trial. That means there was no jury. A judge heard the evidence and decided the verdict. Teresa was convicted of murder. She was acquitted of the contaminating substance count. That tension became part of the appeal. How could a person be convicted of murder by poisoning while also being acquitted of contaminating something meant to be consumed? The appellate court would later answer that question legally. But first, the record had to walk back through the days before Raymond collapsed. According to the opinion, the emergency call came on August 13, 2009, at about 9:20 in the morning. The dispatcher received a call, but there was no response from the caller. When she called back, Teresa said she needed an ambulance. At the house, responders were already treating Raymond and preparing to take him to the ambulance. The home itself did not present an obvious answer. One EMT said Teresa told him she and Raymond had been arguing, that she had left the residence, and that Raymond later contacted her saying he drank something sweet. She also said Raymond was an alcoholic. But the EMT did not see beer bottles lying around. He noticed soda cans on the counter. That detail is small. It does not solve the case. But it shows how investigators had to begin, not with certainty, but with fragments. A call. A house. A statement about something sweet. A man who could not explain it himself. At the first hospital, Raymond was evaluated by Dr. Marion Barnett Rico. The opinion says she was told he had a history of alcohol use. But tests showed no alcohol in his system. Raymond was intubated to help him breathe. Teresa told the doctor he did not want prolonged mechanical ventilation. The doctor responded that they had to understand what was wrong before making that decision. Teresa also said Raymond had been threatening to kill himself, though she said she did not think he would. Those statements mattered because they gave one possible explanation. Maybe Raymond had done this to himself. But medicine began pointing in a more specific direction. The acidity of his blood and the information being given to doctors raised the possibility of antifreeze. Raymond was transferred to Hammott Medical Center. There, Dr. Elizabeth Gall considered toxic ingestion. The statement that Raymond had drunk something sweet mattered because antifreeze can taste sweet. The test for ethylene glycol was positive. The court record says ethylene glycol is found in antifreeze. The medical timeline became crucial. Dr. Gall described stages of antifreeze poisoning. In the first stage, from about 30 minutes to 12 hours after ingestion, a person may show neurological symptoms. They may seem intoxicated. From 12 to 24 hours, breathing and heart rhythm problems may appear. From 24 to 72 hours, renal failure and acidosis can begin. When Raymond arrived, the opinion says he was in the late stages. Dr. Gall explained that the antifreeze could have been consumed approximately 24 to 48 hours before she saw him. That time window is where this case lives. Because Raymond had not disappeared into the world for days, the record traced who saw him, when he sounded normal, and when he started sounding wrong. On August 8, Raymond visited relatives in Pennsylvania to collect firewood. His niece described him as happy and jovial. He had lunch. He joked. He watched television. That does not prove what happened later, but it shows that, days before the emergency, family saw him as himself. Then came the phone records. According to the appellate court, on August 11, there were short calls between Raymond and Teresa in the morning, then a gap. The next call was in the evening. A Bureau of Criminal Investigation supervisor described a substantial amount of calls between them that night. A friend of Teresa's, Phyllis Allen, received a voicemail from Raymond on August 11th. She said he sounded like he had been drinking, which she had known him to do. The phone evidence placed that voicemail at 10:17 p.m., but later medical evidence made the question sharper. Was that the sound of alcohol? Or was it the early stage of ethylene glycol poisoning? The record does not let Raymond answer. It only lets the court compare one observation against another. On August 12th, Teresa told investigators she visited Raymond in the morning and stayed a few hours. The opinion says that when she arrived, Raymond was ill. He had labored breathing. He complained of stomach pain. He had vomited. He was moaning. Teresa said she wanted him to seek medical help, but he refused. Again, there are two ways a fact like that can sit in a case. For the defense, it can support a story that Raymond was acting on his own, refusing help, perhaps concealing what he had consumed. For the prosecution, it can support a different story. That Teresa was with him during the window, knew he was sick, and gave explanations that shifted attention towards suicide, alcohol, or his own actions. A court does not need a perfect video of the poisoning to convict, but it does need proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And in a circumstantial case, the weight of each small fact matters. There was another allegation in the case, and it is important to handle it carefully. Before trial, the state filed a motion seeking to use what it called similar acts evidence. The allegation was that, in 1980, Teresa had poisoned an ex-husband and his dog. The trial court did not allow that evidence to be admitted. So in this episode, it is not proof. It is not treated as a fact of guilt. It is only part of the procedural history, something prosecutors tried to bring in and the court kept out. That distinction matters. True crime often blurs lines like that. A court record does not. After the bench trial, Teresa Kotomski was convicted of murder. CBS News reported that she received a sentence of 15 years to life for Raymond's antifreeze death. On appeal, Teresa challenged the sufficiency and weight of the evidence. In plain language, those are two different arguments. Sufficiency asks whether the evidence, if believed, legally could support the conviction. Manifest weight asks whether the fact finder lost its way in believing that evidence. The appellate court affirmed. It held that the murder conviction could stand. It also rejected the argument that the verdict was fatally inconsistent because Teresa was convicted of murder, but acquitted of contaminating a substance for human consumption. That legal point may sound strange, but courts often treat inconsistent verdicts with caution. A fact finder can acquit on one count for reasons that do not erase the proof on another count. The murder conviction required proof that Teresa purposely caused Raymond's death. The contaminating substance count required proof of a different statutory offence. The acquittal on one did not automatically destroy the other. That is the law part of the story. But the human part is more direct. Raymond Kotomski died after ethylene glycol poisoning. He was found unable to speak for himself. The case that followed was built from medical stages, phone calls, statements, and a judge's view of what those pieces meant together. There is no need to make the story bigger than that. No invented confession. No fake interview. No dramatic certainty beyond the record. Just a man who became gravely ill. A wife whose explanations were tested in court. Doctors who identified the poison. And an appellate court that said the conviction could stand. The title of this episode is Bitter Glass, because the most haunting detail in the record is not loud. It is not a chase or a weapon or a final message written in fear. It is a phrase repeated through the medical record. Something sweet. A taste that should not have been in a human body. A taste that turned a quiet rural house into a murder case. And a question Raymond could no longer answer. Who gave it to him? End note. This episode used public court records and source reporting. Any source readings were synthetic recreations for clarity. They were not real interviews or archival recordings.